guys, Howard here with Beginning Blues Guitar Part 4, okay? So as mentioned in the previous lesson, we're moving to electric guitar for this one, but as also mentioned, you don't have to play it on electric guitar. It's perfectly playable on acoustic guitar, which you'll be able to see right away, and even if you have an acoustic that doesn't have a cutaway, we're not traveling any higher than the 12th fret, okay? Now, as mentioned in the previous lesson, we're going to be working with that E blues scale, the long form or linear version of the scale. So let me go over that again first. So that is the scale that we're going to be using. We'll have a couple of hammer-ons, no extraneous bends, a little bit of this here and there. And we'll talk about vibrato and all that in a future lesson. For right now, what we're trying to do is use this solo as kind of a blueprint to help ourselves learn to improvise. Now, something that I hear a lot of in my private practice is when I teach a student a blues scale or a pentatonic scale or whatever it is, and I encourage them to improvise, get a blues backing going and just improvise, all right? Some students fall right into it. They just get right into it and they're really going and they're having a blast and everything's really cool. But other students find it a bit more difficult. I often hear, I don't know what to play. It all sounds the same. I just play the scale up and down. That's okay at first. Don't give up. Definitely don't give up. Keep at it and you will be pleasantly surprised, okay? But with this solo, this example solo that you can learn, what I'm going to try to do is give you a few ideas, and the ideas are worth me mentioning. I know I'm blabbing, but this is really important. I'll talk about phrasing, playing something, and then playing it again slightly differently. That will always sound very musical, and feel free to jump around. We might try something like... I think you get the idea. You don't have to play one note perfectly follows the other. In fact, jump around a lot and it will sound more musical. So I think the best thing to do here is just get right into the solo. I'll play it for you first, and I'll put the tab on the screen as I'm doing it for those of you who like to just do it that way. But then at the end of the demonstration, I'll get into each and every lick and explain what I'm doing, okay? So here we go. So as you can see, there isn't anything terribly difficult to play. But again, this is for beginning blues, right? Maybe this is your first blues solo ever, okay? Maybe your second, I'm not sure. So anyway, let's break it down phrase by phrase. And if you'll notice, I have the chords above each and everything we're playing. I think it's important to know what the chords are that are going by. And we've covered that in the previous blues lessons with a 12-bar 1-4-5 blues, okay? So let's dive into this, and this is the first thing that we hear. right, so let's break that down lick by lick. I'm sliding with my third finger, my ring finger, from the 7th to the 9th on the G string. Little vibrato. If you know how to do that, or you can kind of catch it just by watching it, please feel free, but I'll be talking about vibratos and bends and stuff in more detail as we make our way through these lessons. So again, we're sliding, then 8 on the B string, back to 9 on the G, 7 and 9 again. So you can look at that literally as the first phrase. Now you notice that second time I'm sliding with the first finger instead. That's to keep myself in scale formation. Some of that will become very natural to you as you progress through your playing, but just wanted to mention that. Then we play you can see the tab on the screen for sure, but let me go through that really slowly. So you can see I catch that flat 5 right there inside the blues scale. That's a really nice thing to do, to lead off of the flat 5 in the blues scale. It's very tasty and always sounds pretty sweet. And then as you can see on the tab, we've got 4 lead-in notes which take us to the 4 chord, the A7. And then we're off and running, okay? So to play everything that you see on the screen, we have this. Right? And then we hit the A7 chord and we have Now that is exactly what I was just talking about, playing something one way, then playing it again another way by adding a few notes to the tail end of it, or maybe just changing the rhythmic phrasing a little bit. But once again, what we have is nice and slow. So a special note about this lick, you can see that I'm hanging on to those 2 notes. I'm sliding, of course, from 7 to 9 on the D string now, and then grabbing the 7th fret on the G string while I'm holding my ring finger down, so those notes run together. You can also separate them, which we'll do a little bit later in the solo. So let's move to the next phrase. And for this particular line, we are really just running that E blues scale. And this is a great thing to practice. What we're doing is we're taking the notes of the scale and we're sequencing them, meaning like playing 3 notes, then backing up and playing 3 notes. You can do it with 4 notes, 6 notes, whatever you want to do. But what we're doing is so those are triplets if you want to look at it that way. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So let me do that real slow. That's a great practice. Just sequential patterns, right? You can make up your own quite easily, all right? And then we've got the tail end of that where we do another slide. So now we have you can see again, keeping my hand within the scale position that I'm playing. So I'm sliding with my first finger as opposed to switching to another finger. And then we find our way to the B7, okay? Down down to the A7 and back to the E. So what I'm doing here is I'm playing some double stops. As I mentioned in the last lesson, double stops are when you play any two-note configuration at the same time. So what I'm doing for this one, you can use your first two fingers if you want to. I use my middle fingers. It doesn't matter which you use as long as you can play it, okay? So I'm placing my second finger, or first finger if you choose to do that, on the 10th fret on the G string and the 11th fret on the B string, okay? So we want to play those two strings together in a rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And how you count that is the slide counts as one note, right? The first note of the triplet. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then staying there, 1, 2, 3 again. 1, 2, 3. So we have, and then that's followed by 12 on the B, 10 on the B, 11 on the G, and back 10 to 12. A little circle, if you will. So we have, and then for the A7 chord, we simply move that whole idea down a whole step. So we're fretting the 8th fret now on the G string and the 9th on the B, and doing that same half step slide. But like I mentioned about playing the same phrase again, adding a little bit to it or changing it up a little bit, we're going to play. So you can see it's just a few extra notes. You can see it on the tab there, but let me play it nice and slow. So I'll put those two together. And then we play. So that's the turnaround, right? It takes us through the E7, the A7, and to the B7. So you can see that on the tab. It's pretty easy to play, but I'll talk about the bend a little bit as well. Now, that's not really a half step bend. I know it says that on the tab, but it's really like a quarter bend almost. So just take the string, grip it nice and firmly, and pull it down toward your feet, and then rest it back on the 9th fret on the D string. If you want, you can push up as well. But I think most of you will find it easier to grip the string and pull it down towards your feet. So let's get into the next 12 bars of the solo. Now the next 12 bars kicks off with what I call repetition. This is something that's very common in blues and blues rock guitar playing. It creates excitement, or it gives the listener something to latch onto. So don't be afraid to use that. Jimmy Page in Stairway to Heaven. Right? It's just exciting. It creates tension, or in some cases, even if it's not fast, it just creates an almost melodic type phrase or a repetitive phrase that the listener can latch onto. They don't have to be a guitar player to enjoy it, and that's really important. So what we're doing here is this. Right? The first phrase and the third phrase are exactly the same, but the one in the middle has a few different notes, right? So it's just a hammer-on, so let me play it nice and slow, and you've got the tab up on the screen. Pretty simple to play, but pretty effective too, especially with the background underneath it. So what we're following that with is what I spoke about earlier. You might have a phrase, and then you can play it an octave higher, all within that same scale, right? And that's the phrase right there, and I play it twice in a row. Again, a bit of repetition. Easy enough, but very, very effective as well. Now this next phrase gets a little busier, but if you've made it this far, which I trust you have, you shouldn't have a problem with this, okay? It's got a little bit of everything we've spoken about, okay? It's got the hammer-ons, a little bit of bending, repetition, playing the same phrase twice but changing it slightly, all of which are great lead guitar and blues ideas. So I'll play the whole thing, okay, which you'll see on the screen, but then I'll break it down and play it nice and slow. That's going to lead us into the B7 chord. So once again, we have leading us into the next chord. Listen carefully to the performance on this one to catch all the phrasing, but let me just play that really slowly. Okay, and then we're going to wind it up by going back to the B7 chord, of course, and we're going to play this. Now for that lick, we've already used it, right? We've used it quite a few times actually. Again, repetition and a melodic phrasing. But what I'm doing here is instead of running the notes together like we did previously, I'm separating them out. Like that, okay? It gives it a slightly different sound, and even though it's a repetition, it sounds kind of cool to make it sound a little bit different. And again, on that 8th fret on the B string, you've got a little bit of a bend. And for that one, you'll probably want to push up. You can pull down as well. Either way is perfectly fine. Whatever works best for you is the way to go. Then we have. So again, it's all about keeping your fingers where they really need to be to play the scale, patterns, shapes, licks, whatever you're thinking of, in the best fingering possible. And there's no steadfast rule for everyone. You might mosh it up. You might want to do it a little bit differently from me. Just as long as it's comfortable and you can make it happen. So you want to be sure to hit that 10th fret twice. And then to close it all out, we play. Returning once again to that double stop over the B7 chord. So we've got the 4 lead-in notes. Now again, what I was just talking about, getting your fingers inside the scale in the most comfortable way. So when I go into this slide, I'm actually sliding from where I'm at. So I'm sliding from 9 on the G string, 10 on the B string, all the way up to 11 and 12, and then returning to that half step slide to give it that blues flavor. Finally coming off of it, okay? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So there you go with what might possibly be your first blues solo, maybe your second, right? I'll run the performance again at the end here, just so you have it. And then the backing track is at the very end of this lesson, okay? You've got the blues backing track that you can practice the solo to by yourself. But also what I'm trying to do is encourage you to improvise. Take some of these ideas, use them as building blocks, right? We'll get more involved as these lessons progress, but for now, hopefully it will get you going and give you some ideas. And for those of you who can just run with it, okay? So once again, the backing track will be provided at the end of the lesson. All the best to everyone. I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you in the next video.